Hello everyone, this is James Shore with a recap of episodes 31 through 40 of my test-driven development video series. In this series of episodes, to start out, let me just remind everybody what's going on here. This is episodes 31 through 40 at 10 times speed. So we're going to see 2.5 hours of programming in 15 minutes. And what we're focusing on in this episode, or in this set of episodes, is fixing some problems in the model. So in the first 30 episodes before this, I had developed sort of a basic retirement planning model called the stock market year, which would calculate the results of 1 year of being invested in the stock market. And then later on, I got that hooked up to user interface, and I hooked up the idea of a stock market, which had multiples of these years. And after I got it into the model, or into the UI, and I compared it to my spreadsheet that I'm replacing, I discovered that it didn't exactly match. And the first thing I discovered, which is what I'm working on right now in this, on the screen right now, is that in the stock market year, I was cutting off everything, truncating all the pennies and just storing things as ints, which I knew was not an appropriate abstraction, but I thought it would be okay. I thought that the cumulative rounding error would be relatively small. It wasn't. It was something like $150 over the course of the 50-year retirement planning period. And so what you see me doing right now is fixing that. So in this, right now, what's being coded is I'm taking my dollars class, which is the value object that I use to represent some amount of money. I did that in episodes 21 through 30. Is really, I think that was the episodes. I took care of all these classes and turned them into value objects. I used to use ints everywhere. Anyway, in this dollars class, I'm taking that int, I'm replacing it with double, which solves the problem, but then I'm modifying equals and later on hash code to behave exactly the way it did before, which is kind of the neat thing about using good value objects, is that I was able to change the underlying representation for dollars without significantly changing any of the rest of the code. Now, for this particular application, there wasn't much else that existed, so it wasn't like I was saving myself a huge effort. But in a more sophisticated application, or one that's bigger anyway, of course that pays off big time. So right now you just see me writing some tests around having equals ignore pennies, which is part of what made everything else work exactly the same. It stored pennies internally, but everybody using the dollars objects didn't really care about pennies because we're talking about some big numbers here, long periods of time, where the pennies just don't really matter for what we're reporting. One of the things I did have to fix, and that's what you see me doing right now, is that I did change the behavior. But now that I was storing pennies, I was rounding up or down rather than just truncating as it used to work. And as a result of that, I did have to go through some of the other parts of my application and do some tests. Okay, this is just finishing up that work. I think the dollars class is all done, and now I'm just checking things out, making sure everything's nice and clean. As I mentioned in one of the videos, I go through the cycle of expansion and contraction. Not just the cycle of test-driven development, which of course is red, green, refactor, write a failing test, see the bar turn red, right, make the test pass, see the bar turn green, and then refactor. But a larger cycle of introducing new stuff, which makes the code uglier, and then cleaning it up, which makes the code nicer. And that's sort of a if the TDD is the heartbeat of the application, that other cycle is the breath of the application. It sort of breathes in and out. And you haven't seen it yet on the videos because at this point, with 40 videos under our belt, there's only been about 10 hours of coding. So just barely more than one workday of coding, which is kind of funny because it feels like I've been doing this for a long time, and I have. But there's another cycle beyond that breath, which is sort of, it's a larger, I don't know, call it a weight loss program or something like that, where not only you're cleaning up what you've done, but you're discovering new things that need to be cleaned up. It's where you're modifying the classes and how they interrelate with each other. And then there's an even larger cycle, um, which I've seen on projects. I was on a project with 8 programmers that lasted for, 18 months. There's between 6 and 9 programmers on that project at different times. And on that one, we would do major architectural revisions about once every 3 months. We'd discover a new one and start refactoring towards it. So there's a lot of cycles, and all you've seen so far is the heartbeat, and the breath of the sort of, making things bigger and smaller, the chest going in and out. At any rate, after I finished the dollars abstraction, or finished putting pennies into dollars, which is well done now, or is past done now, then I got to the point where I realized that the fundamental abstraction of the application did not match the fundamental abstraction of the spreadsheet. In the application, and I find this hard to explain, but because neither approach really reflects the real world. But in the real world, when you sell a stock and you make money as a result of selling a stock, that's called capital gains. Again, I'm not a financial expert. This isn't financial advice, but this is my understanding of it. You pay tax on that capital gains. That's called capital gains tax, sensibly enough. What the application was doing was it was saying, because it didn't want to model individual sales and purchases, what it was saying was that we don't assume anything as capital gains until we've sold an amount equivalent to the purchases that we've made. So we sell off all the purchases, everything that's left over is capital gains, and from that point forward, everything we sell is we pay capital gains tax on. The problem with that is that it's extremely optimistic. It's saying that we're not paying any tax whatsoever until we sell off all the principal, which isn't really. I don't think that's a very pessimistic model. I think that would probably result in our forecast saying that we pay a lot less tax than we do. The spreadsheet works the opposite way. It says that every sale comes from capital gains, and once you sell off all the capital gains, then every sale is assumed to be principal, and incurs no tax. So the spreadsheet and the application were exactly opposite, and that's what you see me fixing right now. Right at this moment, I was trying to fix it, and I just was putting some new logic on the dollars class to support comparing two values for minimum. I also had the distinct pleasure of having my friend and colleague Rob Myers of Agile Institute, who's I've known for years, who worked with me on that very first project that lasted for 18 months. I actually started up another team that worked with the original team on that, and I got lucky and was able to have Rob work with me. So anyway, he came in and paired with me, which was really fun. Didn't get a whole lot done though, because I spent, he was only there with me for 3 episodes, 45 minutes, and we spent a lot of time just sort of catching him up to everything I had done. Pair programming, if you listen to those episodes, and I recommend you do, because we just had so much fun working together. Pair programming, when you compare with somebody you know and like, is a lot of fun, and if you compare with somebody you don't know or like very much, you're either going to get to know and like them pretty quickly, or you'll kill the other guy. So one of the two. Anyway, we had a great time. He didn't really understand the code, though, and understandably, because he only had 45 minutes to learn it. So we didn't do much new, but we had so much fun doing it. So it was real nice having him come out. Anyway, what we're doing right now is we were just trying to figure out how to switch this application over without, in a controlled way. And I ended up having to change a single method that would break a whole bunch of other assumptions and then just run that one test. And I think that was fair, because the changes we were making were going to require other things to change. But it actually turned out to be pretty straightforward. I was able to put almost all the changes in stock market year. let's see where we're at right now. I think we're about to come to the end of episode 37. Next up was episode 38. Yep. This was the last episode that I got to work with Rob. It's called Torturing Rob because, well, I asked him to do some work on the application and so forth. Work, stuff that he'd never seen before. But also working, for whatever reason, the stock market year code, very simple code, not really complicated, but the underlying concept it's representing just confused me to no end over and over again. And for whatever reason, every time I go into that code, I just struggle with it. So here, Rob and I were talking about how much we wanted to withdraw from the stock market. We actually, what had happened was we made the change to the way capital gains tax was calculated, and then as we were starting to look at the next thing to do, I realized that we hadn't changed the way principal was calculated. So the code was not yet finished. So we went in back in and did that. And that's what you see happening right now, is we're writing some code to, after all the capital gains are withdrawn, and then we start selling off the principal, we have to reduce that principal. So that's what you see happening, is that's being coded. We didn't quite manage to finish that before Rob had to go. So that's the end of episode 38. Then I got to just torture myself trying to figure this stuff out. Luckily, by the end of this episode and the next one, finally do get it all figured out. So when we get into episode 41, you'll see there's some final polish work to do, but all this difficult work of figuring out how stock market year works is pretty much done. Also, in episode 42, which I haven't put online yet, I was able to make some changes to the way the domain terminology was used in stock market year, and that seemed to make a big difference. So I am hopeful that the next time I get into stock market year, that will be solved. But actually, after episode 42, we actually finished everything that needed to be done, and we'll be getting on to something else. Probably UI is my guess. Of course, I've been promising that for a while now. It's taken a lot longer than I expected to get to the point where this basic model is in place. Although I wouldn't say that the code has taken a long time to write or that it's necessarily been buggy. It's just that we keep discovering new things that need to go into the domain model. And to a degree, that's normal. I mean, keep in mind that this is only 10 hours worth of work. If you were on a real project, you would have started the project and been in the first half of your second day. There's still time where there's a lot of discovery happening about exactly how everything fits together. So it's not too surprising that there's a lot of discovery. It's a little frustrating to me sometimes, but makes a lot of sense, I think. So here I'm just wrapping up the calculation. At this point, I actually had the calculation working. I was just trying to make the test read a little more clearly. Then realizing that this code I just written was duplicating an existing test that I was also failing. And rather than trying to make that other test pass, I realized that this was a duplicate and I just needed to incorporate a few more things. And then here we are coming up to the end of episode 40. Now I'm just looking around, making sure everything's nice and clean. At this point, the abstraction has been rewritten. Now the application works like the spreadsheet. And the next couple of episodes, I'm going to double check that, fix a few things, make it all nice and pretty. And then that brings us to the end of episode 42, which is all I've recorded to date. After that, we will go on to new things. So that is the end of the recap. Thanks very much for watching. I hope to see you with episode 41 shortly.